MD radio show where age management is always front and center. Along with Dr. Charles and Francesca Guglin, I'm Gary Byron. Hey there, my friends. How are you this morning?
We're good. We're good.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was uneventful. We were in Florida with Francesca's son in Florida.
Got some sun. We got some swimming.
Went swimming. No sharks.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Swimming and I mean, that's great to hear.
Thanksgiving, yeah. I mean, the best time to be in Florida is in the fall or the spring, I think, because in the summertime it's too hot. In the wintertime, you can't really swim. But this time of year, it's amazing down there. The weather is just perfect. And I'll go swimming. I'll go swimming anywhere. So cold water doesn't bother me. I always just want to go swimming. So
you guys are always you're always going somewhere, you two. My goodness.
Yeah, most of it's business related, quite frankly. This was a vacation, though. Yeah, this was cool.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Vacation, and get to enjoy family as well, and enjoy actually my favorite holiday of the year.
Yeah, and her son is newly engaged, so we got to celebrate.
That's right. I forgot. I remember you mentioning that.
Yeah,
Next Thanksgiving, he'll be a married man.
Wow. Ooh.
And if I know them, they'll have a baby coming too at the same time. So.
And you're like, yeah, good. I remember last week we were talking about radio frequency, microneedling, and you were playing around with a new machine that you had purchased before we get into today's show. How's that toy doing?
I don't know. We've been away, man.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah, right.
We'll see. Yeah, right. Put it this way: there isn't a line out the door waiting. So we're hopefully there will be a line someday waiting. But we're starting to get some nibbles. There's some people on the schedule to come in and we're really getting started with it in terms of scheduling patients and whatnot for it.
So now that Thanksgiving is over, Black Friday yesterday, that's behind us. Any in your travels are anything on the horizon now? Any?
Yeah. We when we were in Dallas, we talked about this last week. We were in Dallas for a conference. We've previously done a show about peptide therapies.
Oh, right.
And there's some new stuff. It's actually it's not new stuff, but new uses for older stuff that's been on the horizon. A lot of, this is not one of those things where patients are asking us for it. It's one of those things that we're bringing to the practice because we think they're very helpful some of them for very specific reasons. So there were some new peptide therapies that we learned about and that we've been wanting to talk about for several weeks now. And so we're just going to take the opportunity to talk about some of these because they're pertinent to what we do, So it's a good time to talk about it.
Right. So were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, to answer your question, we have no plans to travel.
Oh, okay. That's where I was going. That's okay though.
Oh, sorry.
No. Your answer was fine.
Yeah.
I just because you've been jet setting all across. You've been in Malta. You were on the West Coast, and then you were in Tennessee, and you're in Dallas, and you're in Florida, and all right. So okay.
Yeah, Francesca's right. I mean, we're putting our heads down and we're working right through the winter. So.
All right. Yeah. This is the time I would think that you want to work. Right?
That's right. Exactly. Well, a lot of the stuff that we do, especially the aesthetic stuff, spring, summer, and fall are really. Summer not so much because a lot of times when we're doing things, sun exposure is an issue. So wintertime, for a lot of the aesthetic stuff that we do, wintertime's a good time.
Sure.
So
refresh my memory if you don't mind. Sorry, what are peptides again?
Peptides. All right. Yeah. You know what a protein is, right?
Yeah. Proteins are good. You need protein.
Proteins are good, yeah. If you remember from high school biology class, a protein is a string of amino acids. Amino acids are the basic building blocks of proteins. A protein is a string of amino acids that's greater than like 40 to 70 amino acids because when you get a linear string of amino acids that is that long, it starts to fold on itself and becomes a three-dimensional object that can sit on a receptor and do its job, whatever its job is. A peptide is simply a short string of amino acids. A lot of things, for instance, that we think of as hormones are peptides. Insulin is a peptide. Mm-hmm. Our body, I remember hearing in a lecture once, our body makes something like 37,000 peptides have been identified at this point, things that our body makes. When we talk about it in medical practice, we talk about the group of peptides that have been found and utilized in a therapeutic vein. Now, all of these things, everything that we talked about in the previous show when we talked about peptides and the stuff that we're going to talk about today are all peptides that your body already makes. So we're not talking about pharmaceuticals here, stuff that's made on the bench. We're talking about stuff that your body already makes, that science has found and utilizes in a therapeutic way for different indications, like anything else in medicine. You find something and then you create, you find what you can use it for. So basically a peptide is a string of amino acids that has been discovered by science and has found to be useful in a therapeutic way. And we've already talked about a bunch of them.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, quickly go through maybe some of the ones that we've discussed in the past.
Okay. So let's see, CJC 1295 and ipamorelin. They fall into a category of peptides that are known as secretagogues. These particular peptides they are useful. Let me back up a little bit. Practices like ours over the years have typically prescribed human growth hormone to patients for off-label reasons, to build muscle, burn fat, stuff like that. I don't particularly like using human growth hormone because, as we've spoken about before, everything in the endocrine system is a feedback loop. So if you introduce something into that feedback loop exogenously, it tends to turn off that feedback loop. So if you give somebody human growth hormone, it kind of turns off their hypothalamus and their pituitary, and they're not secreting their own growth hormone anymore. And they're wicked expensive, by the way. A month's worth of human growth hormone is like $3,000, so it's crazy expensive. The two peptides I just mentioned, CJC 1295 and ipamorelin, there's several more that fall in that category, are what are called secretagogues because they stimulate you to secrete more of your own human growth hormone. So you're introducing them into a feedback loop, but they're not closing that feedback loop. And they're very useful in things like, again, building muscle, burning fat, sleep. They're remarkable for sleep. Why does a baby sleep? Why can you throw a hand grenade into a baby's room and it doesn't wake them up? Because between the hours of 2 and 6, they get an enormous spike of growth hormone. That's what keeps them asleep. As we get older, we lose that spike to a very large degree. So the people come into my practice, because we're an age management center, the typical pattern of sleep that we hear of all the time is, I fall asleep fine, doc. Sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning, I wake up, maybe to pee or something like that. Then I cannot get back to sleep. My head is going like this. So if you give these people CJC 1295, they give themselves a tiny little shot. It's with an insulin syringe. You literally don't even feel it. And about a half an hour later, they get a big spike of growth hormone, and bam. And it's physiologic sleep. It's not sleep that you get from taking something like Ambien or something like that. There's no hangover. I mean, you sleep like a baby. It's remarkable. BPC 157. It's called the healing peptide. We talked about this one the last time. Is only present in the human GI tract when you're healing an ulcer. It was found in the gastric juice of people who had open ulcers in their stomach. If you give BPC 157 to somebody with GI issues, like somebody with, let's say, Crohn's disease, they're in remission from Crohn's disease because they're taking an immune suppressive drug or something like that. If they put some BPC 157 under their tongue every day, it helps with the symptoms considerably. A lot of practices like mine use BPC 157. They'll inject it if you injure, for instance, a tendon or something like that. It speeds the healing process. So if you inject BPC 157 in an area around a healing tendon or healing skin, it speeds the healing process. Let's see. Let me go through my list here. Some of the other ones that we use on a regular basis. Let's go on and talk about the newer ones that we wanted to talk about. All right, let's talk about thymosin alpha, because this was just taken off the market by the FDA. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Thymosin alpha is a peptide that is found in the human thymus that stimulates the immune system, stimulates the creation of new killer T cells. So if you take somebody who's immune compromised and you give them thymosin alpha, it boosts their immune system, makes them more resistant to infection. Thymosin beta, again, comes from the thymus, the human thymus, is a peptide that crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it is amazing for memory, short-term memory, cognitive function, not just memory, but sharpness in terms of cognitive sharpness, that kind of thing. There's one called C-Lank, S-E-L-A-N-K, which again crosses the blood-brain barrier and is really good for depression, mood disorders, dysphoria, things like that. So many of these peptides cross the blood-brain barrier and are very helpful with serotonin and dopamine regulation. And again, they're not pharmaceuticals. They're not the kind of thing that give you side effects that typically antidepressants do not. Typically, antidepressants give to people. A lot of times they'll say, I was on antidepressants, but it just took the person that was me out of me. You know what I mean? They'll say, I've been taking these antidepressants, but I just don't feel like me anymore. So they come off them, and then they're chronically depressed. So a lot of these peptides, the ones that cross the blood-brain barrier, are very helpful with these kinds of problems, mood disorders especially, or cognitive function as you get older, that sort of memory loss that you get as you're getting older. It's not dementia, but I always tell these people it's more of a lack of focus than it is memory, but it's very helpful in terms of mental sharpness and stuff like that too. So all these are ones that we talked about, I think, the last time we were here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I mean, you can go on forever because there's a lot of them. Some of the thymosin alpha was just taken off the market by the FDA.
Why?
Politics and money. It's a short
they're not
explanation.
unhealthy or anything.
No, they're not unhealthy. It has more to do with politics and money. And compounding pharmacies and the war that Big Pharma is currently engaging with the compounding industry. Yeah.
That's just sad. How are these generally administered?
Many of them are oral, depending on, for instance, the BBC 157 that we talked about. If you want it, it's more useful in the GI tract if you take it orally. I guess that's probably intuitive. But you can also inject it. For instance, I have chronic back problems. My low back is killing me all the time. And if I systematically give myself injections of the BPC 157 in my lower back, and again, this is just an insulin syringe. You literally don't even feel it. Over a period of days, my back will feel better. And as long as I continue those injections, it feels better. The ipamorelin, we talked about that, and the CJC 1295, those are injections. Many of them are oral. There's one called bremelanotide, which is, it's much like the secretagogues, but you can take that orally. So many of them you take orally, many of them you inject. So it's different. Some of them are topical. There's a couple.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a few peptides that we use for hair restoration. GHK 41.
There's the hair restoration again.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just woke up our producer Ryan here.
No, Ryan works the look, man. He's a handsome man. He doesn't need hair.
Oh no, are you kidding me? That is the look.
Yeah, that is the look. Yeah.
I'm still hanging out in the the 80s or something. I don't know. What can I do? Nothing.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just. Do you want to discuss maybe some of the new ones that
Sure.
are available? Okay.
Sure.
Good.
Let's talk about semaglutide first.
Okay.
You may have heard of Ozempic, which is the pharmaceutical grade version of this. Mm-hmm. Semaglutide is it's called a GLP-1 or a glucagon-like peptide. I'm reading off of a cheat sheet because a lot of this stuff I don't have in my memory. The way it works, and it's used typically in the age management realm for weight loss, because the way it works is it increases, let me back up a little bit. Most anti-diabetic medications work by taking, what is diabetes? Too much glucose in your blood, okay? You're not managing your own glucose levels well because you become insulin resistant. We're talking about type 2 diabetes here, by the way. You become resistant to your own insulin, and your pancreas over time secretes less insulin. Most diabetes medications work by taking glucose and pushing it into the cells, typically fat cells. So frequently, anti-diabetic medications, it's a vicious cycle because they make you fatter as you get older while you're taking these medicines. A couple of these medications don't work that way. For instance, metformin, which you may have heard of, is a medication that really works completely different, obliquely against diabetes because it makes you more sensitive to your own insulin.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make you fatter. Semaglutide is a peptide that works by increasing your secretion of your own insulin, okay? And it decreases the secretion of glucagon by occupying glucagon receptors. Glucagon is a hormone that increases your blood sugar. So if you have something that occupies glucagon receptors, it decreases your body's response to glucagon, and therefore you don't get these spikes in blood sugar that diabetics tend to get. So this was developed by a pharmaceutical company. It's been around for a long time since, pharmaceuticals like this have been around since like the mid-aughts, like 2010, 2012, in that range. But right now it's approved as a medication for diabetes. But in our realm, we use it as to help people lose fat. Because the way it helps you lose fat is, number one, it keeps your insulin levels nice and low, so you tend not to process glucose and turn it into fat, number one. Number two, it decreases gastric emptying. So when you eat a little bit, you tend to get full faster. So in that regard, it is an appetite suppressant also. So it's pretty amazing. It's unlike, for instance, amphetamines, which people have used to lose weight forever.
But that's a pharmaceutical. Amphetamines are pharmaceuticals. Though.
Right. So what this does is it decreases your hunger because you become satiated much earlier during the time that you're eating something. And for me, again, I've told you this 1,000 times. Francesca and I are always the first guinea pigs in our practice. So we've been using this for a while. My problem with weight is lifestyle, let's say, is portion control. I'm a typical dude, okay? You put food in front of me, I'm going to eat all of it. And if you put more food in front of me, I'm going to eat the rest of it. That
Discipline, my friend.
Right.
Not that, believe me, you know the journey I've been on. You met me when I was 30 pounds heavier.
Yeah. So I know.
35 pounds heavier, actually.
Yes, I mean, I know how to eat cleanly, but, you put even clean food in front of me, I'm going to eat a lot of it. So already it has changed my pattern of eating to the point where the actual volume of food that I'm eating has been cut by half, because if you monitor the way you feel while you're eating, when you're on semaglutide, you feel full much sooner. And so you break that cycle, just eating and eating and eating, So
those are the side effects then? Those are the side effects.
Well, that's the way it works, but it helps you lose weight. It helps you lose fat that way.
There are other side effects.
Oh, the other side effects are you start with very low dose because you start with a very low dose, and then over a period of weeks you work up to a heavier dose, because one of the side effects can be very mild nausea. Francesca felt nausea. I did not. It was not a problem for me.
Because she's lighter than you?
Maybe. We took the same dose to start with. Yeah.
Oh, that could be
she's
it.
100 pounds lighter than me.
Well,
so
there you shouldn't have had the same dosage then.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of homeopathic dose that we started with.
But it's not going to cause any.
Well, but it could have caused you to vomit, right? If you were feeling nausea.
I suppose, but it's not dangerous to take. It's just
No, I get that. Yeah. Sure.
But it's a great way to lose weight.
And
lose fat
in a short amount of time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like anything else. You want to lose. You want to lose slowly over time.
It's about calorie control.
It's not a 30 pounds in 30 days thing. Okay, it's really much more kind of slow, steady weight loss. Yeah.
But it's an appetite suppressant.
Yeah.
It's part of the way it works. Yeah.
Well, so if you're not eating as much as you used to, I would imagine that weight's going to come right off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it helps you to eat less calories. If you believe the whole calorie in, calorie out thing, which to a certain degree is true, it's very helpful in terms of helping you lose weight. But also, it changes the way you process the things that you do eat, because you don't spike blood sugar the way you typically do, because it decreases your insulin levels. So.
And how did you say that was taken? Not topical, but that's orally, right?
Injection.
Oh, it's an injection.
But it's once a week.
Oh, I
once
see.
a week. Yeah.
Okay.
There is oral. No, there's oral versions of it.
Folks, you are listening to HyperFit MD radio show, where age management is always front and center. You can check them out online at hyperfitmd.com, and also make an appointment at 203-890-9777. I will repeat those ways of contact very shortly at the end of the show, along with Dr. Charles and Francesca Guglin. I'm Gary Byron. I'm so sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you. I had to get that in, though.
Yeah. So I just want to complete the thing on semaglutide, because there's some very, very significant important things about this. And it's been shown, for instance, to decrease cardiovascular events in type 2 diabetics.
Wow.
People with already proven cardiovascular disease. It lowers hemoglobin A1C. One of the ways we measure the way a person processes sugar is hemoglobin A1C. It's a lab value that tells us basically what your average blood sugar is over a prolonged period of time. And it has been shown to decrease hemoglobin A1C levels. And it enhances the beta cells in the pancreas are the insulin secreting cells, and it's been shown to increase the level of beta cells in the pancreas too. So there's some real hardcore physiologic effects to this that are good. That are all up. They're all good things.
Is there something called a KISS peptide?
All right, this is kind of a long story. HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, is what's called a luteinizing hormone analog. It stimulates the secretion of testosterone. So in young men in our practice who come to us with low testosterone levels, either they abused steroids when they were in high school or college, or they just, which we're seeing a lot these days, young men with very low testosterone levels. If you're 55 or 60 and you're done with the whole childbearing thing and your testosterone is low, if you've gone through andropause, we give you testosterone to raise your testosterone levels. These younger men, we want to stimulate their testicles to make more of their own testosterone. So HCG comes into play there. HCG stimulates your testicles to make more of your own testosterone. For years, the pharmaceutical industry has been trying to is lobbying, let's say, the FDA to make HCG a biologic so that it cannot be compounded by compounding pharmacies. Politics and money. It's got nothing to do with science or medicine. The FDA finally, this happened around Christmas time of last year, designated HCG as a biologic. And on November 3rd, 2021, it became unavailable because compounding pharmacies were no longer allowed to make it, and the pharmaceutical industry did not pick up the slack by making more HCG. So not only can we not find it, but when we do find it, the price of it has tripled, quadrupled or tripled. So it's basically HCG is no longer available. And we have many, many patients in the practice who are on HCG. Kisspeptin is a peptide. It's a naturally occurring peptide that is a luteinizing hormone analog. So it does basically the same thing that HCG does. So we're in the process of doing our own study in our practice. These guys that are in our practice, we're switching them over to Kisspeptin, and we're going to monitor their testosterone levels over time and make sure, obviously, the whole idea is making sure that they get the same therapeutic effect that they were getting from HCG, because we have no idea when HCG is going to come back on the market. And this is something that's been around for 50 years.
Side effects on that, though, too? Or?
Very low.
Okay.
Very low. Basically, it increases your testosterone levels. In women, it increases follicle-stimulating hormones, so it can also be stimulating ovulation in women who are anovulatory or women having problems conceiving, that kind of thing as well.
And how's that taken?
It's an injection.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a couple times a week you take it.
What about 141, peptide 141?
PT 141 is bremelanotide. This is a new one that we're starting to use, and again, we're kind of in trial format with it. Basically, it's been used in women, premenopausal women with what they call hypoactive sexual desire disorder, or HSDD, basically women with low libido. And it's been used in our industry to help women if you're postmenopausal and you have no libido, you need estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. We've already been through that. Mm-hmm. If you're a young woman, premenopausal with low libido, this can be very helpful. But also we're finding in men with erectile dysfunction that this is pretty remarkable in terms of helping men who have erectile dysfunction get erections. So we're kind of in trial format with this with the men in our practice to help them with sexual arousal, with libido as well. That kind of thing. So the PT-141 again is an injectable peptide. One of the problems with it, let's say, is if you take Viagra. One of the reasons we use this, a lot of guys, Viagra doesn't work. Cialis doesn't work. So the over-the-counter, the prescription pharmaceuticals sildenafil and tadalafil don't work with a lot of these guys. And so we're going to try PT-141 in these guys.
And really quickly, some of the side effects from PT-141?
Erections occurring at pretty weird times, actually, because one of the weird...
How the wind blows?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, boy.
The problem with it is that you don't know... It works. Number one, it totally works, but you don't... And it varies from individual to individual when it works. Some guys, it works within a couple of minutes of taking the injection. Other guys, the onset of action is a couple of hours. So basically, you have to achieve some level of experience with it to know how it's going to work in your body, and then you use it to that effect. So it's very helpful in that. So and it doesn't act. Basically, the way it acts is not on the vascular system the way Cialis and Viagra works. Basically, what they do, they're vasodilators. They open up the blood vessels to create an erection. This one works more with sexual desire and really piques your libido.
How is it taken?
It's a little injection.
That's an injection as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
Spanish fly of peptides, you're saying, yeah.
Which I've never I don't. Maybe you've tried Spanish fly, Ryan, but I have no experience with it, and to a large degree, I think it's probably a myth, but I don't know.
From Mexico, right? From or South America or something.
Yeah,
I just remember hearing it in movies.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Never quite took it. Didn't even know it really existed. It was just more mythical than anything else.
You'd have to ask Hugh Hefner. He'd probably tried it.
I would have. He could have. Why? He could afford. Well, when he was
That's
alive,
true.
he could have afforded the best of the best that was out
He
there.
can pay somebody to have sex for him.
And the line the guy's
You're right.
dead. Why are we talking? All right, so folks, you can visit HyperFit MD. They're at 88 Noble Avenue, Suite 105 in Milford. Check them out online. I always say, look around their website. Maybe get some of your questions answered. Of course, it could provoke some new ones as well. HyperFitMD.com. You can also send some questions to you can email Dr. Charles Guglin at cguglinmd. That's CGUGLINMD at HyperFitMDAMC.com. And of course, do things the way I would do it. I would just call and make an appointment. It's very easy to do. 203-890-9777. Once again, it's 203-890-9777. Is HyperFit MD. For Dr. Charles and Francesca Guglin, I'm Gary Byron. Thank you so much for listening to HyperFit MD. Until next Saturday, have a good one, everybody. So long.